do we really need another layer 1? The short answer is probably not. The long answer is more uncomfortable because the layer 1s that do survive from here won't look like the ones we're used to. This isn't about blockchains dying. Ethereum isn't losing its $100 billion gravity. Solana isn't suddenly forgetting how to process meme coins traffic at absurd speeds. What's ending is something more subtle and more painful for the industry. The era of general purpose layer 1 is coming to a close. If you zoom out to 2025, the numbers already tell the story. There are more than 100 active layer 1 blockchains. Most of them are fighting for the same things: developers, liquidity, attention, and narrative oxygen. Meanwhile, Ethereum still anchors over $100 billion in total value locked, with Rollups quietly pushing real throughput into the hundreds of transactions per second. Solana handles peak mania with sub-second finality and has become the default casino floor for high-speed trading. Everything else lives in the shadow of those two facts. And yet, new layer 1s keep launching. Not because the base layer problem isn't solved, but because many founders and investors are still operating under an outdated assumption. If we build a better chain, users will come. That assumption used to work. It doesn't anymore. To understand why, you have to understand how we got here. The layer 1 story started clean. Bitcoin proved decentralized money could exist. Ethereum proved code could live on chain and coordinate strangers at scale. Then came the trilemma panic. From 2017 to 2021, we convinced ourselves that the core problem was throughput. So we built faster chains, delegated proof of stake, sharding, new virtual machines, new consistent mechanisms, new promises. Some of those experiments mattered, most didn't. A lot of early layer 1s learned the hard way that performance benchmarks don't create economies, governance frameworks don't create demand, and Ethereum killer is not a go-to-market strategy. By the mid-2020s, the industry learned a quieter lesson. Scaling the base layer is not the same thing as scaling usage. That realization is why Rollups won. It's why modular design became respectable, and it's why something called a new layer 1 stopped feeling ambitious and started feeling defensive. So what does the layer 1 landscape actually look like in 2025? It looks less like a frontier and more like a city that already picked its highways. Ethereum dominates settlements and capital. Solana dominates execution and high-frequency activity. A small handful of other chains survive by specializing aggressively. Developer activity clusters where liquidity already lives. Interoperability protocols reduce the need for isolated sovereign chains. And regulators, especially after the FTX, quietly favor incumbents with existence compliance services. Token performance tells the same story. Outside of a few exceptions, most layer 1 tokens are down 50 to 90% from their cycle highs, dragged by unlocks, dilution, and weak organic demand. This isn't just a bear market problem, this is what saturation actually looks like. Now here's the part people usually miss. The fact that most new layer 1s shouldn't exist does not mean that none should. New base layers still make sense, but only under very specific conditions. They work when they do one of three things. First, they serve a user that incumbents don't care about. Real-world assets, compliant payments, region-specific rates, markets where regulation is a feature, not a tax. Second, they collapse the stack for a single vertical, not general-purpose DeFi, but something narrow, perps at scale, stablecoin settlement, or application-first execution. Third, they unlock economics that don't work elsewhere. Different fee models, different incentive alignment, different assumptions about who the actual user is. This is why people keep trying. Real-world assets grew into the 24 to 30 billion category by 2025. Stablecoins focused chains pulled in hundreds of millions in funding. Some newcomers generate real revenue, not just trivial screenshots. Even Vitalik had argued that a multi-chain world is healthier than a monoculture. That argument is correct. It's just incomplete, because fragmentation is no longer theoretical. Liquidity spreads thin, bridges becomes attack surfaces, and roughly 80 to 85% of new chains drift into irrelevance within a year of launch. Most don't fail loudly, they don't collapse in spectacular fashion, they just stop mattering. And here's the part founders don't like to hear. If your pitch is we're faster and cheaper, you're already late. Layer 2s absorb demand without asking users to care about new base layer. App chains and L3s give teams sovereignty without ecosystem tax, and compliance pressure makes launching a fresh global settlement layer harder every year. The overhead of being a layer 1 is enormous, and the payoff window is shrinking. If you look honestly at the 2025 cohort, the pattern becomes obvious. Some chains worked because they weren't trying to be everything. Hyperliquid didn't sell itself as the world computer, it became infrastructure for one thing. and did it better than anyone else. Plasma wrote stablecoin finance and distribution. Others focused on compliance first or liquidity-driven models. And then there's the other side of the ledger. Tokens that launched on hype, dumped on unlocks, and never found real usage. The lesson isn't that a new layer 1 always fails. The lesson is that general purpose ambition without distribution is fatal. Looking ahead to 2026, the industry isn't collapsing, it's sorting. Specialized base layers, the one that looks suspiciously like infrastructure companies, will quietly survive. The winning question shifts from is this chain better to who is this chain unavoidable for? If the answer is crypto natives, you're building for a shrinking audience. If the answer is a real market with the real constraints, you might have a future. So, do we need another layer 1? Not another everything chain, not another trilemma slide deck, not another token design to subsidize usage that never arrives. What we might need are base layers that stop thinking of themselves as layer 1s at all. Chains that exist to solve a narrow, boring, high-value problem. Chains that don't need users to care they're on-chain. Chains that integrate into the real economy instead of asking the economy to move into crypto. Most attempts will fail, a few won't. And the ones that survive won't look like Ethereum killers. They'll look like plumbing. And that's usually how winning technologies end. And that's a wrap for today. I'll catch you up in the next video. Till then, bye-bye.